Hello everyone, Carlos here with Austin Kayak, and today we're here to talk to you about how to select a fishing kayak. We're going to be talking about 5 main points, which are stability, pedal versus paddle, features, storage, and transportation. So we're going to be talking about stability. Stability is probably one of the things that kayak anglers look for the most these days. A wider kayak evidently is going to be more stable than a narrower kayak. Something to consider is the fact that stability, while it's given by the whole design of the boat, it's also a skill that you will develop. It comes with time, but you will become a lot more agile while standing on a kayak. One of the advantages of a wider boat, of course, is the stability. You can turn around, you can fly fish, you can cast with a little more confidence. But at the same time, some of the drawbacks is that a wider kayak is not as fast, it's not necessarily easier to turn, and it's not going to track necessarily also as good as a narrow boat. Ultimately, it's a personal preference and with your fishing style, depending on what you want to do. All right, so we're going to be talking now about pedal versus paddle. Pedal kayaks, there's a lot of options out there. They allow you to go on the water hands-free, which ultimately translates into more casting ability. You can move from point A to point B with your hands free. You can be rigging your baits, or you can be casting a structured fish. Some things to consider are the cost. They're typically going to be a bit more expensive than a paddle kayak. The maintenance, of course, is just an additional device that after some use might require some additional care, and how shallow you can go. There's a great debate out there on whether you can go as shallow with a pedal kayak versus a paddle kayak and whatnot. But it is something, from my experience, you can almost do the same, but with the pedal kayak is one more thing that you have to have in mind. You know, when you're going to hit the stump, how shallow is it? If it hits, is it going to make additional noise? When do I need to lift the drive so I can be a little bit more stealthy? On the paddle kayaks, biggest advantage, of course, is going to be the cost. There's a lot of options out there in the market. It's also a little bit quicker, I'd say, to get on the water, given that you just have your boat, your tackle, and the paddle, and you can go no issues or no challenges in the future with maintenance. Something to consider again, just like the benefit on this one of having the hands-free, you don't necessarily have this here. So as you go from point A to point B, if you need to move, you got to be using your hands. You cannot be necessarily fishing. You got to put your paddle down every time you want to take action and go after some fish. So a lot of options out there, and it's always a personal preference. All right, so next we're going to be talking about features on the kayak, and we can go for hours about this because there's a lot of options out there, and every kayak has its own little kind of things that make it different from maybe another boat. Generally speaking, again, you want to look for features that are, number one, applicable to your style of fishing, but it could be something as a paddle sheath, which allows you, of course, to paddle as you go. You find maybe a fish you want to cast at, and you can just slide the paddle under that sheath and it won't float away. Another one is a track system. A few years back, track systems weren't really a thing, and you had to hard mount something onto the boat. Kind of the drawback on that is if you change your mind, if you change your style of fishing, if you salt your boat, you would have to leave that mount there. With track system, these days you can mount pretty much anything you want onto the track, slide it in and out. It can be a fish finder, it can be a rod holder, a camera mount, cup holder, cell phone holder, anything that you can think of, and you're not doing any permanent install onto the boat. These days, most boats are going to have a track system. If they don't have it, it's something that you can also even add onto the boat. Again, install a track system. Adjustable foot pegs, it's another kind of customization option that allows you to fit better onto the boat. Most boats have it these days, some others don't, depending on the style, whether it's a pedal or a paddle. One more thing to look at. Flush mount rod holders, just another option where you can have the rods behind the seat or maybe in front of the seat while you move around, maybe for trolling. Biggest thing that I personally like to focus on is how the layout of the deck, right? All the boats are going to be a little bit different. If you're a fly fisherman, you want something that is super clean, so you don't have your fly line getting stuck everywhere. If you are a gearhead and you want to carry all your stuff, you want, of course, maybe a cockpit with a lot of options and pockets and places where you can store your gear. Big thing these days, of course, are going to be the seats. Most fishing kayaks, I'd say, are going to have an adjustable seat, or seats that are way more comfortable than what we used to see maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. These seats, or some seats that now even allow you to move from high to low position, of course, they will adjust back and forth again for you to fit better onto the boat. But the ability to adjust the seat on the low and the high position does two things. One is, depending on the conditions, if you need to be kind of lower and lower your center of gravity, you can put it in a low position and feel a little more confident that you're not going to flip. Also, you will offer less wind resistance, so that's another big plus. When you have it on the high position, it's just a lot easier to go from sitting to standing up and side casting or fly fishing. All right, so now we're going to be talking about storage, and very much like with features on a boat, we can talk for a long time because they're all specific, of course, to each kayak. But generally speaking, starting from the back, you have the tank wheel. This is a space behind the seat. This is where you would typically carry your cooler, your fish bag, maybe a milk crate or a crate of some type, where you can carry all your accessories, maybe your tackle, vertical rod holder storage and whatnot. There's some options these days for accessories where you can mount additional storage options under the seat or behind the backrest. The center console is where you can mount most of your electronics. It is super easy to access, where most people keep their kind of very basic accessories like a fish grip, pliers, a knife, small tackle. But also where you mount your electronics. On top you would mount your fish finder. Inside the center console you would have your power source. Some cases, depending on the make and model, you can remove that center console, that additional storage, with all your electronics, and that way you can keep it safe away from the kayak. When you get on the water, you just insert it back onto the boat, and you have your electronics and all your gear ready to go. And of course, the biggest storage on most kayaks is going to come on the front hatch. This is mostly internal. It goes into the inside of the hull, and we typically recommend, to keep, of course, your first aid kit, your emergency and safety equipment, an additional paddle, additional PFD, maybe an additional jacket if the weather's going to be changing on you throughout the day. So a lot of storage options throughout the kayak, and a lot of other accessories you can mount to even increase the capacity of storing equipment and gear on your kayak. At least we're going to be talking about transportation. That means how are you going to get your fishing kayak from your home onto the water. It is important to consider, as you search for the kayak, the specifics of the boat, how heavy it is, what are your abilities to lift and maybe muscle up a kayak, and of course your method of transportation, whether it's a truck, or a sedan, or an SUV. There's a lot of options to transport the kayak, of course, to the water, starting from a trailer. That is going to be one of the most convenient options because the trailer is right at waist level. You just have to lift the kayak on top, strap it down, and haul it to your destination. Considerations would be, of course, the price point. They're going to be a little bit more expensive. There's additional paperwork depending on the state, but you do have to register your trailer with the state, and of course the storage, since they're going to be a lot bigger. Other options are going to be the rack systems. There is a rack system for every single vehicle out there. It can be fitted, whether it's a truck or a sedan or an SUV. You have to keep in mind that these ones are going to be, most of the cases are going to be on top of the vehicle. So then again, keep in mind how you're going to get it on top. There are a lot of accessories, a lot of options from all major rack manufacturers, options where they allow you to mount the kayak at maybe ground level and then lift it up and provide you some type of aid. Once you get to the water, of course, you have to think about taking the kayak from your car, your vehicle, to the actual water via down the boat ramp or through over the beach. So for that, you need a kayak cart. There's two types. Of course, you have the one that goes through the scupper holes and the one that just cradles the kayak. Both are great options. There are pros and cons on each one of them. Price point is going to be one of them, and how easy they are to put on and off the kayak. Typically, the cradle one is going to be a little bit easier because you can just slide it on to the kayak, get to your destination, and slide it out. Scupper carts, you technically have to lift the kayak and feed the two poles or the two vertical bars onto the scupper hole. So a lot of options out there. Very important to consider the kayak, how are you going to transport it, but again, we have solutions for all those options. So during this video, we talked about the 5 points on how to choose a fishing kayak. We start with stability, pedal versus paddle, features, storage, and transportation. Like always, there's many topics that we can talk about, but ultimately, we want to hear from you. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Feel free to visit one of our shops, go online, call customer service, share and comment or like this video. And if you're interested in this or any other products or information, visit us at ack.com and let us outfit your adventure.